Welcome to the Recess Life Podcast. This is the place where we explore play and what it means to get back to your inner child. I'm Louise, your host. Join me as I chat with teachers, entrepreneurs, artists, and thought leaders about how we can live a life of more play and impact. Let's get it started. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of the Recess Life Podcast. Today, I am so excited about our guest. Her name is Nailah Blades, and I've known Nailah for a few years, actually. Thank you so much for joining us, Nailah.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm so excited to be here, and I love the name of your podcast. It's awesome.
Oh, thanks so much. So, Nailah, you and I have known each other a few years, and the story is actually kind of funny how we know each other. I think it was 8 years ago now or something, and I was having a quarter life crisis like most of us do, and I was Googling, I think specifically life coach for a quarter life crisis, and your website at the time came up, and you just happened to be doing a course where you were going to be coaching and guiding people through their quarter life crisis, and I signed up right away. So you were my first, and I think really only ever life coach. It was awesome. And then we just connected over the years just through social media and through World Domination Summit, which is this amazing conference that I've met so many amazing people through. So I'm so excited to have you here and so excited to be talking to you today.
Me too. I'm so excited. And like you said, I feel like we've, known each other for so long just on the internet, and we're able to connect virtually and then in person. So I'm excited to be here and chat with you for a bit about play.
So for those of you who don't know Nailah, I'm going to tell you a little bit about her. Nailah Blades Wylie is a coach and the CEO of Color Outside, a curated travel company for women of color who are ready to create unapologetic, soul-stirring lives through outdoor adventure. Nailah started Color Outside as a safe place for women of color to come together and unlock where they're feeling stuck so that they can fully step into their joy and shine. When she's not leading adventure retreats or coaching, you can find her hiking with her husband or playing intense games of hide and go seek with her two tiny kids. You can find Nailah online at coloroutside.org or on Instagram and Facebook at WeColorOutside. Oh my gosh. So excited to dive into all of that. So before you started Color Outside, you had other things that you did, but I would love to kind of hear how your path has sort of landed you to where you now lead Color Outside. And then, of course, we'll dive into what you do there a little bit.
Yeah, well, it's so funny that you brought up polka dot coaching, because I do feel like I've had this interesting meandering path, and in some ways I'm coming full circle. So started off once I left my corporate job, started off as a life and business coach, and did some great work there with lots of women, helping women through the quarter life crisis, and then somehow that morphed into a marketing agency. So spent a good the last 6 years or so doing digital marketing for lifestyle brands. And I just, let's see, so I'm in Salt Lake City, Utah right now. I'm not from here originally. So we moved here 2 years ago from Southern California. And it was just a huge transition for me. So I felt like 2 years ago, we moved from this one place where I was totally used to it to Utah, where I had no idea about anything. And it was a complete culture change. I also, my first daughter, I have two kids. So my daughter was a little over 1 at the time. So I was still kind of getting into the new motherhood thing. And then I was just in this place with my business where, it was going really well. I had a lot of clients, but I just had that nagging feeling that I wasn't in love with it anymore. And it had really felt like I started to feel like how I felt towards the end of my corporate career, where I just felt like I had created this corporate job for myself and I didn't know how to escape that. So, and then we did this big move. So I really felt like I was just, kind of thrown for a loop, and I was felt a little unmoored. I felt like I didn't know who I was anymore. All the things that I felt really that kind of made me who I was were just changed. Like I wasn't a California girl, I was a new mom. I've always been kind of an entrepreneur, but I was like, I don't even really like my business right now. So it was just a really interesting time for me. And while all that was happening, so we did this move and I was like, well, I do want to get outside and I do want to explore Salt Lake City because it's so beautiful here. And, that's what you do. And I wanted to give it my best shot and not just say like, oh, I hate it here because it's different. So I started doing that. And as I was getting out and, hiking and just exploring and doing new things, I kind of started to see like glimpses of my old self where I was like, okay, I feel like more reconnected to like my core again. And so I was like, yeah, I should start just a free meetup group because I'm sure there's other women of color who are feeling the same way. Salt Lake City is not a huge place for diversity. There's not a ton of women of color here, but it's growing and there's a lot of people of color who are moving here for jobs and things like that. So I was like, there's probably other people who feel the same way, who are lacking that sense of community, but also want to be able to explore their new world. So started this meetup group. And I was right. There was tons of women that came out. We started hiking and exploring together. And just as I was, talking to them and then also talking to my friends that were all over the place and they were seeing me post on social media what I was up to, I started to realize that there was a space for this, that there were women all over the place who were interested in doing things like this. So I started thinking about like, well, how can I expand this and how can I make this bigger and make it a little bit bigger than just, my local meetup group here. So then that's when I hosted my first retreat for Color Outside. And that's basically how Color Outside, the business, was born.
Wow. I love it because you could have very well stayed in a place where you felt stuck and, sort of despaired about, oh, my life has changed so much. I'm in this new place and I don't know who I am anymore. But instead you decided, I'm going to get out in nature. I'm going to go play. I'm going to reconnect back with myself. I'm going to connect with others and connect with them and see if others feel the same way. And you decided to make that step, and that sort of has landed you to where you are, which is, we're going to definitely dig into that, but that's so cool.
Yeah.
So when you started the meetup group, I'm sure there wasn't the idea of, oh, this is going to be a business necessarily. No, I'm sure it was just okay, let's just see what happens. I just want to connect with others. Where were sort of those turning points that led you to where you are, that you saw this as a potential?
Yeah, so it's so funny. So I hosted a hike and only one woman showed up. So it was just me and her, and we're like, well, let's go ahead and do this hike anyway. And as we were talking, I just started to get to know more about her. So she was telling me about, she had this job that she just felt stuck in and trapped, and her dream was to be a writer, and she wanted to support herself as a writer, and she just did not see how that was possible. She just felt like she would have to stay in this job that sucked and kind of write on the side. And I was like, no, there's so many different options. So we kind of talked through a lot of the things that she was afraid of, talked about things that were kind of blocking her. And then I gave her, lots of different like resources or next steps. So by the time we were down with our hike and we were down at the bottom of the mountain, she was like, I feel so much better. I feel like a weight's been lifted off me, and I'm going to go home and just like attack this new plan. And I was like, that's so interesting. I mean, and I felt amazing too. So, like we talked about, I have a background in coaching, and for the first time in a long time, I was like, oh, I feel like really on fire. And she felt on fire. And I was like, this feels like there's something here. It feels like I can combine the things that I love, and I can help other women kind of work through some blocks and get to a transformation while we're out in the wild and out in nature. So I was like, I think there's something here that's a little bit bigger than just hiking with women and building the community, which I was really passionate about as well. So I think that was really the turning point when I was like, I could combine a few different things that I love and potentially make a business out of it.
Wow. I love that. And again, it was just from a place of unexpectedness, if that's a word.
Totally. Yeah, because I was like, well, it's just me and this woman, so I'll just get to know her a lot more than I usually get to know the other women if there's, 10 of us out on the trails.
Mm-hmm. If this can impact one woman so profoundly, what are the opportunities for more?
Exactly, exactly. And I feel like there is something really real about kind of going through those transformations while you're outside. So you're already moving your body, you already feel, physically strong. I mean, I know I always feel just like, yes, my body's amazing when I'm
Yeah.
like doing something physical that way. So I think that there is kind of that mind body connection where it's like, hey, I can do this. I could hike this like this mountain. I'm standing at the top of the mountain. Why shouldn't I be able to figure out how to make myself into a writer, a professional writer? Or why shouldn't I be able to get over this fear of something? So I think
Right.
that there definitely is that mind body connection. And I'm really excited to be able to explore that.
Like, what else is possible if I'm able to hike up this mountain and be strong?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And then, I mean, also just approaching things from a place of play and approaching things from a place of curiosity where it's like, well, maybe I should just try this out. Maybe it won't work, and maybe people don't want to be coached while they're hiking up the side of a mountain, but why not try? So I think that there is something about approaching everything from that place of play and curiosity and exploration that you get when you're outside.
yes, absolutely. And so, Color Outside today, what does it look like? What are the programs that you do? And yes.
Yeah, so really, Color Outside is looking to help women create an unapologetic and soul stirring life. And so I do that through outdoor adventure. Really focusing on curated adventure experiences. So we have retreats. We have a retreat coming up in September that's going to be in Wyoming. We've done several retreats here in Salt Lake City and Park City. So just getting women out of their everyday life, coming, having a huge adventure, and just not having to think about stuff. So that's the curated travel experience, and then then also building in that community aspect. So I think that there's so many of us that are feeling the same way, whether we're feeling stuck or whether we're feeling like, okay, now I'm 30 or 35 or whatever it is, or I have kids and I'm married and I have all these responsibilities. Now really isn't the time for me to be exploring or playing or thinking about joy. But I don't think that's true. So I think that there's a lot of us out there that are feeling that way, and it's kind of helping us to break past that and start building in more of that adventure into our everyday lives. Finding that community of other women who are looking to do the same thing as you, and then also the coaching. So receiving that transformational coaching and having someone there who can actually say like, okay, this is why you're feeling this way, and it's a real thing, and here's how we can move past that so that you can go on to bigger and better things.
Oh, that's so soul stirring. I love that.
Yeah.
Man. So yes, you mentioned some of the excuses, objections, we'll say, that women come to you about when they're sort of feeling stuck, but then they have these excuses around, oh, I can't, or there's, that it's not the right time, all that good stuff. What do you say to them besides it's not true, of course.
Yeah.
What are some
I
of
mean,
the things you tell them?
there's so many things. Like a lot of time is one of the big ones. So a lot of people are like, I don't have time for this. And I mean, that makes sense. Like as women, we're just busier than we've ever been. And a lot of us, if we're working our full-time jobs, and then we also have all this invisible work, right? That happens where we're thinking about kids or our family or our parents or, dropping off dry cleaning, and we have all of this stuff going on in our head. So it really does feel like we just don't have time to add anything. And then on top of that, there's also the fact that women just feel like taking any time for themselves, especially just to play or be joyful or do their own leisure activity that's just for them, it feels really frivolous and it feels really selfish. So a lot of women just don't even they just shut it down where they're like, I can't, I don't have the time, first of all. And then if I did have the time, I'd have to be doing something much more worthwhile than just like playing. To that, I mean, I think that there's something almost revolutionary about just being able to get out there and experience joy and experience play and experience leisure on your own terms, doing what you want, not doing stuff with your kids, not doing stuff with your spouse, whatever it is. I think it's revolutionary for women and especially women of color, because it's just something that is not, it's a space that we're not kind of meant to be in. You know, we're already fighting against all these different stereotypes, whether it's like the angry Black woman or like a spicy Latina or whatever it is, or we have to be like a, you know, hardworking, you know, we have to work twice as hard to get half of the credit. All of this stuff we're fighting against. And that is stressful. That's a lot.
A lot
So
of pressure.
it's a lot of pressure. And so I think that there is, you know, basically something really revolutionary about being like, this is who I am in this space. I want to just have fun. I'm going to be joyful. And you're just going to take my joy. Like there, you know, you're not, it's here and it's on display and I'm going to take up this space. And there's nothing you can do about it. And there's nothing about that you can do to take that from me. So I think that it is really important as women, and especially as women of color, to really be able to embrace that and say, like, this is who I am, and here I am taking up this space.
Yes. And for some women, it might be one of the first times that they were told, you are allowed to take up this space and you don't
Yeah.
have to hold back. And how freeing that must be to hear that and to be given that space. So
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's some of us who have been, you know, super responsible since we were teenagers, and we've just been taking on more and more load and caring for people and thinking about others and just shoving all of our stuff deep down. So yeah, how, you know, freeing and just like revolutionary is it to be like, I'm just going to do this for me, and it's totally selfish, and it's the only I like doing this thing, but who cares? It's my thing.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And I think in particular, the outdoors have not been very well. It has seemed like it's just not the space for women and in particular women of color to be
Yeah.
in, right? So what you're doing is huge because you are saying yes, you belong here, and
Yeah.
yes, you can take up this space here.
Yeah, totally. And that's one of the things I know. So, you know, when I first moved here, I was doing the marketing. So I started kind of reaching out to different gear companies. There's a lot of gear companies here, and there's a big outdoors industry here in Salt Lake City. And what I noticed is that people were marketing to the badass, essentially. So all these, like, if they're a snowboard gear company, they're marketing to the guy that's like doing, like, I don't know, flips off the
Flips.
mountain or like king side. So I was like, well, where's the space for the people that are the people like me that are like, I'd like to get into this. I am not a professional. I'm not a bad. I'll never be a professional, but I'd like to get into it and I'd like to explore. So I felt like there's just a huge gap in the outdoor industry that is leaving out, you know, women, it's leaving out people of color, it's leaving out, you know, people from the LGBTQ communities, it's leaving out people who, you know, have different accessibility, you know, it's just leaving out a ton of people. So
Hmm.
I just know that there's a lot of space for us all to be out there and to fully take up the space.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah. That must have been really interesting trying to talk to these companies. Uh,
Right.
yeah. Yes. There's space. There's room for all of us,
Yeah,
right?
literally.
And and it just it excludes everyone if we or excludes so many people if we're not having these conversations and
Exactly.
creating and without people like you creating spaces. And I love that you saw that there was this need and you said, okay, well, I'm going to create it for myself then.
Right.
Oh, oh, incredible. Can you tell me of any transformations you may have seen of some of the women that you have led these retreats through? Some where maybe they came in being very tired or uncertain about what they were doing and saying, "Oh, I've never hiked before," or maybe this is new to me. And then by the end, where they came around to.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing is just seeing women really kind of just recapture their glow. So a lot of times women, they might come and they're just like, I'm just frazzled and beat down and I just feel burnt out. Like, you know, so it's not even, you just feel like you're on this hamster wheel and you're doing everything for everybody else. You're never putting yourself first. So just having, especially with the retreats, just having that weekend or 4 days to just everything's taken care of for you. You know, we have a chef, we have a photographer, like, so you don't have to think about anything. You don't have to pack lunches. You don't have to make dinner. You don't have to make your bed, you know, whatever. Everything's thought out for you. So I think even that small thing of just arriving someplace and being like, I don't have to think about anything for the next 4 days. It's just so eye-opening for women. And you really just see women just recapturing their glow. And then also just being able to try something new or, just getting out there. And like I said, like feeling your body moving and connecting with other women who are kind of in the same space as I just feel like I see like an all-around transformation of the women who come through the retreat or the women who are in our online community as well. But really the ones that come to the retreat, I really do see that like kind of full like mind, body, like soul transformation where they're just leaving and they feel lighter and they feel more energized and they really do feel like they could kind of get back out there and take on some of the like big dreams and challenges that they may have had in the past that they let go.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. To see them by the end of the weekend, I'm sure is just such a joy to see how they
Right.
how they've transformed.
Yeah, it is.
Yes, that's incredible. So if, let's say, there is someone, and I think we all have to deal with this to a certain degree, but we may not be able to, if we may not be able to get away for a weekend. But what is something we can do, or something that you've done on a day-to-day basis to help you sort of recapture that glow in yourself? Do you have any daily practices or anything that you do to really get back to yourself and get back to that place of joy and play?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think this is a big one. And like I said, most women are like, I don't have the time to do this. So then being able to say like, well, come away from me for 5 days, a lot of times is a hard sell. But I think that we could totally do things to inject play and joy and, adventure into our lives every day. So I am big on creating space for things, like creating the time for it. So I think that, a lot of times we look at our calendar, and I do this too, where I plug in, appointments or meetings or like all this stuff. And then basically my calendar is just a schedule of things that other people want to do for me or want for them. And there's nothing that I want to do for me. So I think one of the biggest things you could do is really just start creating space in your calendar for play. So saying like, and start small, So I want to make sure that I like go on a walk every day, and then just looking at your calendar and saying like at 2 p.m. every afternoon, I go on a walk, and putting it in there and then really holding that tight, like as if it's any other obligation that we have, and not shifting it around, not letting anybody schedule a meeting there, and saying like, I get up and I go on a walk every day at 2 p.m., and that could be your thing. Or if you're like, I want to play more. Maybe it's like I get up and I jump rope, or I ride my bicycle, or I go and play basketball. Whatever it is that makes you just feel like you're in that feeling of flow, and you just feel like really excited to be there. Go out and do that. So I think just creating that space, and it could start super small, where it's like I just do this for an hour every day, and then maybe you can grow it where you're doing a couple things a day, or you're going on like a 4-day retreat where that's all you're doing is focusing on your joy.
Yeah. Taking it just as seriously as you would an appointment with a client or anything else. Yeah.
Absolutely. Because, I'll look at my calendar and it stresses me out because all it is something that somebody else wants from me. Somebody else wants me on a meeting for this, or somebody else I'm meeting this deadline. So I think it's so important to just like actually block off that space for yourself and then really hold it tight. And there are like, when you look at, it's easier for me because I'm an entrepreneur, so I work from home, but I think anybody could do this, so it's kind of thinking through like, when are you really, like I work really well in the morning. So it doesn't make sense me trying to like push myself to like work really hard at 3 p.m. Like it's it's not going to work. So I try, I know that about myself. So I front load all my work in the morning so I can be, on it, and my brain is like ready to go. And then in the afternoon, that's when I can be like, okay, this is when I need to go and take a walk, or this is when I need to go and take a hike, because my brain feels like, it's done anyway. And getting out there is going to refresh me and make me feel more productive anyway. So I think it's important to find that balance.
Yeah. And you say maybe it's easier because you're an entrepreneur, but I think, from my experience, sometimes it's really easy to sometimes work 12 hours a day and not take time for yourself, because you don't have a time you clock in and clock out necessarily. You create that. And if you're not cognizant and if you're not aware of yourself, you could just go down that hole and never come out. So,
it's totally true. It's totally true. So yeah, I mean, I think anyone can anyone can take an hour for themselves every day. And if we can't, then there's something seriously wrong. So I think
Yes.
making sure that we can kind of like start plotting that into our schedules and just really holding tight to it and being firm about it.
Yeah, and also realizing, like you just said, that it actually can make you more productive and
Yeah.
get you refreshed and back into that space. I know for me, when I try to take at least one dance class a week, and
Yeah.
I know that for me, it shifts my brain into a different mode that is
Yeah.
able to get me into flow
Yeah.
and get me back to working in a place that's even more productive afterwards, or
Exactly.
the next day. And I feel like, okay, I've utilized my body, I've utilized my mind and spirit in a way that is very fulfilling. And now I can get back to work. So,
Right. Yeah. And you could bring all that into your work too. I'm like really nerdy. So like I always have like these like research studies and stuff that pop up in my head. But there's a neuroscientist or researcher, David Strayer, I think is his name, and he studied something called the 3 day effect. And it's basically what we're talking about. So he sent like backpackers out in the wild for 3 days. Oh, sorry, they did a test, like so a little cognitive test, sent them out into the wild 3 days, came back and retested. So then what they saw was that when they retested, like all of the stuff for like problem solving or creativity, innovation, all of that stuff was they scored higher on it. So basically our frontal cortex is our like taskmaster. So it's the thing that's like remembering all of this stuff and has that running to-do list, and it just gets fried. It gets fried from day-to-day life. So getting out there, doing your dance class or taking a walk or going for a 3 day backpacking trip or whatever it is, gives your brain the chance to like use other parts of the brain. And then you could come back feeling just more passionate and innovative and, excited and inspired. And you can apply that to your work.
yeah. Oh, yeah. It gets fried because we're not robots. We're not machines that are meant to just. And even if you were a robot and machine, you have to get a restart and a reboot
Yeah,
once
you
in a
need a
while.
break. Yeah.
Yeah, I have to restart my Mac every week to
Exactly.
make sure
I
it's
know.
operating. Same with my phone. So yeah, if a machine needs a reboot, then what do we need as humans, right?
Yeah,
So
totally.
yeah. Um, so I'm curious about when since you did sort of take this meandering path a little bit to get to where you are, having done the corporate job to your marketing agency and to start Color Outside, I'm sure you yourself had internal and perhaps external challenges that you had to go through in order to decide, okay, this is what I'm excited about, and this is what I want to start now and do. Can you tell me a little bit about what those might have been and how you, in particular, overcame some of those challenges? I'm sure they haven't gone away altogether, but
Yeah.
yeah, how
Yeah.
that
I
looked.
mean, I think every time I start feeling that way, where like I felt in my corporate job where I was just like, this is not for me. And I went right into corporate after college, so I kind of didn't know better. But almost immediately I was like, this is not for me. And I tried changing jobs and I was like, it's not the job or the company. It's just this entire structure was not for me. And then I started feeling it again with, my agency that I had built. And so I think for me, whenever I start feeling that feeling where I'm just like, everything feels off, I feel like I'm driving myself out of bed. We all know those feelings where it's just like, I hate this work, and I hate this feeling. I really just check in first with my core values, and I check in to make sure that my core values are lined up with whatever it is that I'm doing. You might have heard this where it's kind of like, think about all the stuff that you love, write that down on one side, and then think about the stuff that you do every day and write that down on the other side. And if they're not matching up, then you've got to change it. You got to change one of the sides. And that's basically what I try and start with at my foundation when I feel like something's off. And that's like 100% always the issue is just my values. My values are just misaligned with what I'm actually doing every day. And it just creates friction. So that's exactly what I noticed with this last kind of iteration of myself and last pivot, where I was like, even though it's my own business and like I created this business to have more freedom and flexibility and all of these things, I wasn't getting that. I wasn't getting any of that. I still felt very tied to my laptop. I felt like I was working with clients that I just didn't feel passionate about, like, so there was a lot of things going on. And once I was able to slow down and really just get back down to that kind of nitty gritty and foundational aspects of it, it was super clear. So then I just needed to say, like, okay, how do I get more of the stuff that I love back into my everyday life? And for me, starting to like get outside and explore, because I had no idea. I didn't know what to do next. So I was like, I know I don't want to do this anymore, but I don't know what's next. So once I kind of just sat with it and like went out and got into the wild and did the hiking and did the exploration and started just doing stuff for fun. So started the meetup group, started taking classes, just getting out there and just doing stuff for fun. That's when I was able to like figure out this other stuff. So I think like, we can't always just like sit and like think our ways out of stuff. A lot of times you do have to kind of like work through it or play through it or explore through it. And then it'll be like super clear. I was like, oh, like this totally makes sense. Why didn't I think about this before? But I couldn't like muscle my way through that transformation.
Yeah, it was just it's sort of built upon each other. Well, I'm going to go outside and then let's do this meetup group. And then it all just sort of built upon each other. Were there moments of doubt when you decided, okay, I'm going to do this new thing and I have no idea how it's going to go, but here we go. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. And like I always joke with my husband, I'm like, oh, I wish I had thought of this when I was like 25 or whenever it was that I started polka dot coaching. Because I felt like when I started, I mean, I'm sure there was doubt there and I'm probably romanticizing it a bit, but I was just younger and I had less like everything. So I was like, yeah, I'm going to quit my job and start a business. So I felt like right now it just seemed like I had so much more to lose by changing my business in such a dramatic way. And I also, I've always dealt with this kind of fear that people are going to see me as like flighty or, not serious, I guess. I don't know why, but that it's like, oh, there's Nailah. She's changing, businesses again. She's never, but it's like, well, it's not that I'm just like going from here to here like a firefly, but I've built like 2 successful businesses and this is the 3rd one. So people are allowed to change, you're allowed to pivot, and that's okay. So I had to work through a lot of those feelings where kind of like, well, what are people going to think? Or what if this doesn't work? I'm going to like, I have a family. I can't just like, go off the deep end and not bring in money, So I had a lot of those thoughts, and I just had to kind of bring myself back to reality and say, like, I've done this before, I could do it again. It's okay to make changes, and if I don't like a change, I could change again. So nothing is set in stone. I have all of these resources and things at my disposal to make something work. So I can totally do it. So that and that always comes up. It's not something that I am able to shut the door on and it goes away forever. Like I always have those doubts that come up, but just getting better at like noticing them and kind of pushing them to the side before they consume me.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. And yes, like you said, it's everything has built upon each other. Your coaching practice is being brought into this. It's all sort of led you to where you are. And but yes, those voices sort of, I don't think they go away for anyone, no matter what you're doing, which is just such an important thing to remember. But what I love is what you talked about with your values. It's like ultimately you decided what you valued was more important than whatever these voices were saying, and
exactly.
And so I love that you stuck with that.
Yeah. It's interesting. I don't remember who told me this, but because one of my big things was like, I just feel like I can't start over. And I feel like I'm starting over from the beginning. And, I'm not 25 anymore and all of this stuff. And they were like, well, you're not going all the way to the start line. But they're like, think of your life as like a spiral staircase. So you're higher on the staircase now. So, like I'm starting a business again, but I'm like, three rungs up now. So I know all of the stuff and I could take all the stuff from the other businesses I started. So like you said, I could take all the stuff from coaching, or I could take all the stuff I learned from my marketing agency and apply that. So it's you're never starting from scratch. You're just like, maybe you're at the same little position, but you're like way higher on your spiral staircase. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was really impactful.
Ooh, I like that visual a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're just constantly climbing the spiral staircase. So you're never climbing all the way back down to the bottom. You're always up a rung. But yeah, you might just be kind of at a similar space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I bet you have some women that come to you that like the woman that said that she wanted to be a writer, where they're
Right.
like, "Oh, I've been doing this other thing for so many years. How can I start over now? Or it's too late, or oh gosh, it makes me so sad when I hear women say it's too late, or they're sort of they've sort of surrendered to this life that they've built, and they think,
Yeah.
okay, there's nothing to do but just to keep going on this path.
Yeah, and it's like you're kind of surrendering to good enough, right? Because I mean, I could have done the same thing, where it's like I had a good business going, and nothing was terrible. So it's almost like, who am I to blow up this business and start from scratch? But it's like, well, why not? Why I deserve to feel much more on fire than I was feeling.
Totally. And the fact that you also have two little kids, you could have easily stayed doing what you were doing, and had every excuse in the world, but you didn't. So that's super inspiring, and I hope someone that hears this is inspired to do something different if they want to, if they
Yeah,
have that feeling in them.
yeah, absolutely.
So yeah. So is there what would you tell someone if they were sort of in that place? I love the values exercise that you were talking about. Is there anything else that you would suggest that they try or do to sort of get out of that stuck place?
Just
Besides play,
yes.
of course.
Oh yeah, so yeah, I mean, I think getting clear on like what's even going on, like why do I feel this way? So that's we're kind of value exercise or looking at your strengths or just all of that stuff, like deciding what is it that I just really don't like about what's this situation. So I think getting super clear, and then I think kind of doing that experimenting phase, and that's where a lot of the play comes in, where it's like, okay, like I know that when I think back on experiences where I felt most alive, it was, I don't know, like for me, like when I think back when I was a kid, like I loved like swimming and getting dirty and climbing stuff. So I was like, oh, like hiking is a total no brainer for me, because that's you're just kind of like, you're not getting like muddy and like kicked in the mud, but you're getting kind of dirty and sweaty, and it's fun. So like thinking back on those things, where it's like, how can I incorporate some of my like past experiences into something fun, and maybe that opens up the pathways for something else. So I think kind of allowing yourself to be curious and explore and play and just have like an adventure. And your brain is kind of noodling all this stuff. Like once you get really clear and once you're like, this is what I'd like my life to look like. Yeah, so like I think it'll come forth. So, getting really clear, and then I think really putting together like a vision and saying like what once you're clear on what's missing or what you're disliking about your current situation, just getting really clear on that vision and putting that together, putting it on paper and saying like, this is what I would love. This is my ideal work life, or this is my ideal life, and getting that together, and then kind of getting out there and just like exploring alternatives, and talking to people who are doing things that are different to you, or listening to podcasts, or just literally like, playing and discovering. And I think that that's all going to help things fall into place for you.
Yes. Yeah, the clarity part of things, that can be so hard, because especially if you're in a place where you just are unhappy, and all you can do is, though, I don't like my life, but there's
Yeah.
no specifics around it.
Right. Yeah.
Then you're just going to stay stuck. So
Yeah,
getting
exactly.
really
Or you're
clear.
just going to move into something that's similar to the last thing. So, like with jobs, like if you're like, oh, I hate my job, I'm going to get a new one, and then you just kind of keep getting the same job at a different company, you're not changing what's actually making you feel that way.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, well, this was so inspiring to have this conversation with you, Nailah, and I'm so excited about what you're creating. I'm just seeing such amazing things with Color Outside for you, and just a tribe of inspired women of color that are making big changes in their lives and
Yeah.
dominating the outdoors. And I'm just so excited to see
Yes.
to see this all
I'm
happen. So.
I'm super excited too, and thank you so much for this. It was great just chatting with you and catching up again.
Yes, Definitely. Thanks so much. And if you're up for it, I just would love to end this with a little dance party because dance is
Oh,
what gets me excited. And I saw Janet Jackson just this past weekend, and she's killing it still.
I saw
So,
her, oh
oh,
gosh, it was probably a couple of years ago, and it was incredible. It was such a good show.
oh my gosh, amazing. So we're gonna play her new song by that she's doing with Daddy Yankee, and we're just gonna end this with a little dance party.
And I know you're a good dancer, so don't
No.
touch moves.
That.
Okay, here
Okay,
we
there
go.
we go. We'll cut it. Yes. I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Nailah Blades Wylie, my first and only life coach. It's really amazing to see how her life has evolved and that she's taking a stand for women of color in the outdoors now. Our conversation really opened up my eyes to how some of us may not feel welcome in all the spaces of our life, and the outdoors is a big one. That is a place that we should all feel free to be able to play and express ourselves fully. I thought I'd take a minute to go through some of the takeaways that I really got from our conversation and a few of the lessons that I learned. Number 1. Find or build a community around something that lights you up. If you are feeling discouraged about something in your life, find others that enjoy doing things that you like to do. When Nailah was feeling discouraged about her life and just not feeling like herself, she organized a meetup group for other women of color to come together and hike and experience the outdoors together. And it led her to create her business, Color Outside. Number 2. When you start to play more in your life, you may get the itch to try a new career or life path. And don't look at it as starting over, but look at it as a continuation of your journey. Every chapter of your life builds upon each other and has led you to where you are, and it has informed your next step. Nailah went from a corporate job to a life coach to heading up her own marketing agency to now leading Color Outside, her outdoor adventure company for women of color. And everything she had done up until that point led her to where she is. So be open to where your journey can take you and really look at each part of your journey as something that helps you get to the next step. Number 3. Make time for play. Put it in your calendar and treat it just as seriously as you would an appointment or a deadline that you have for work. Our lives can easily be filled with things that other people want from us, and it would be super easy to just neglect anything for ourselves. And play is standing up for ourselves and saying that we are just as important as what anyone else wants from us. So this could look like a walk every day. It could look like taking a class or workshop, or just having a dance party by yourself in your room. But whatever you do, take it seriously and make sure you incorporate it into your life. And number 4, give yourself permission to take up space. Some of us have not felt welcome to take up space before, so we've held ourselves back and therefore not played fully in our life. Nailah has taken it upon herself to create safe spaces of play for women of color in the outdoors. So what about you? Where do you desire to take up space? Maybe you have something to say in a new blog that you've been meaning to publish. Maybe you've been wanting to try out that new class or workshop or that new side hustle. Whatever it is, give yourself permission to take up that space because your voice deserves to be heard and you deserve to be just as seen as everyone else. Again, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode. I hope that it inspired you to get outside and play more. There's nothing like being in the fresh air, sunshine, and experiencing all that nature has to offer. Go to therecesslife.com for all the show notes of this episode. If you aren't already, make sure you're subscribed on iTunes, Spotify, or YouTube. And lastly, if this episode resonated with you, please share it with a friend who could use more play in their life. Or you can also leave a review on iTunes. I would love to know what resonated with you and what insights you learned. Thanks again for tuning in, and I look forward to seeing you next week for a new episode. Make sure you go out and play today.